Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Tuesday topic. Today's topic is crafting effective prompts with artificial intelligence. And our speakers today are Dr. Fran Cornelius and Dr. Trish Shavokas. It looks like we got a few more people coming in, so let's just wait till they get settled and in. And without further ado, let me throw it over to you, Dr. Cornelius. Fran, take it
Thank
away.
you. Yeah, thank you very much, Darren. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today to talk about a topic that I think is important. I think as we're working more and more with AI, that it's important that we develop some skills with prompts. And today we're going to be talking about, as Darren indicated, crafting effective prompts using AI as a partner, a collaborator in this endeavor. So today, what we're going to be doing is, going over the basic introduction to AI and prompt development. We're also going to talk about the benefits of AI-generated prompts, AI-assisted prompts, practical demonstrations. We're going to have an overview of best practices, and we're really going to also have an interactive activity for you to sort of practice what we've been talking about during this presentation. We'll also have a component of the session that will allow for Q&A. However, both Trish and I are very amenable to having questions asked throughout the presentation as the questions arise. In addition, we're going to be providing you some handouts that will have some additional resources because, as you know, we're only going to be doing this presentation for an hour, which provides very limited time for something that is a very broad, very rich, very deep topic. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the subject of what we're talking about today, which is effective prompts. And why do they matter? Why does it matter to have effective prompts when we're working with AI? So I have 10 things listed here. The first, of course, it does improve quality because when you have clear and specific prompts, it leads to more accurate, more relevant and useful prompts. Vague generally confuses AI, and so you won't get a response that's on target. Second, it helps if you save your time, because when when you're efficient with how you write your prompt with AI, it reduces the need for back and forth and follow-up edits. However, we'll be talking about this later on or throughout the presentation, that there is an iterative component to working with AI. There is back and forth. However, the quality of your prompts and how you respond to it, as you become more savvy, improves the output that you're going to be getting. It also encourages critical thinking. It helps you, when you go through the process of designing thoughtful your prompts for AI, it helps you start thinking more deeply about, or more clearly about the problem or task that you're hoping to accomplish. Fourth, alignment with intended purpose, where it helps AI to tailor the response. So when you align it with specific goals and your target output, you get a better result. It also minimizes misinterpretations. So having effective prompts clears up ambiguity that can confuse AI and have flawed logic and irrelevant information produced. It also allows for exploration of new ideas, maybe reframe your problems and maybe even co-create with AI, which it particularly is effective in AI design and brainstorming. It also allows for you to develop modeling for better questioning strategies that help support personalized learning for your learners. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the teaching and learning aspects of AI prompt engineering. And also encourages students to develop this AI student relationship that builds literacy in working with AI, which of course is an intent that we have and a responsibility that we have as educators when we're preparing our students for the workplace of the future. A detailed prompt will help AI focus with credible sources, focus on credible sources and appropriate methods and precise terminology, which really supports research accuracy. Prompting AI to consider bias, equity, and other privacy issues while you're working with it also ensures the responsible use. Again, it develops a skill set and then provides a more balanced outcome. And finally, effective prompt development helps users to refine their questions through an iterative process, which is really something that helps improve your skill sets and also increasingly improves the output that you're going to be generating from AI. Trish?
Oh, thanks, Fran. As Fran had noted, I'm really pleased to be here today to share with you some points in terms of prompt engineering. And from that point, if we look at the core principles of prompt engineering, we want to be able to, first of all, engage with our AI tools. And it's one of the things that we also note, it's essential for us to be able to master our foundational elements of this prompt engineering. And you're going to hear things repeated several times over. You're going to see different resources available, but it's something that I think you'll find to be helpful as you start to implement these pieces, because it will be a time saver in the long run. If we start with specificity, which is at the top of the pyramid, we want to note that this is about being precise with our language, and that holds true across any domain that we work in. So one of the things that we know is any of the AI models rely heavily on the input that receive. So if you're going to be vague or broad, it's a recipe for having misinterpretation or hallucinations to be developed. It'll be unfocused and you'll see inaccurate results. So one of the things that could happen is, instead of you asking, tell me about AI, say, summarize how large language models like GPT-4 are used in clinical decision support. That amount of specificity is going to improve the quality. In terms of context, we're going to take a look at what's happening in terms of giving the model the necessary background. And so we don't want to leave too much to AI to assume. And we know what happens in terms of assumptions at times, especially when they're not met. Another point that we'd want to consider is the next part in this pyramid, and that's iteration. And so we want to repeat, review, repeat, review, repeat. And actually within that area, you're going to incorporate a change in terms of an adjustment so that you could obtain the best output in terms of the prompt. Next, we look at the foundation of the pyramid, and that's where we have balance. And this is where we want to find some type of, essentially, a sweet spot between what's happening in terms of structure and then leaving some room for creative or analytical capabilities of AI. You're going to see this with a particular concept in a few slides, which is about temperature. And we'll go over that. So would you mind, next slide, please? So here, as we take a look at the anatomy of a slide, and I thought, well, how perfect in terms of using the human body as a metaphorical framework. So we're going to do that in terms of understanding these instances. And I was working with one of the students in terms of grad students with some work in terms of her dissertation, and I'd asked her about a couple of different examples of anatomy, and she had said, I would use this one. It has a little bit more detail. So thanks, Alea. Appreciate your input there. So with that, one of the things that we'll note is the head is our purpose. So this is just going to guide our thoughts as we consider and actions in terms of the goal and then the intent in terms of what is happening. We'll also go next to what happens in terms of the as we move down, we're going to start from the head, we're going to go down into the context, and so which is our heart. So head to heart, and then we're going to look at this in terms of the background of the information that AI needs to be able to understand what's going on. We'll then go in terms of the instructions. So from the heart, we'll go to the instructions, and we're going to give step-by-step guidance. So the clearer you are in providing information, the better off you will be in terms of getting good output in terms of your prompt from whatever AI tool that you're using. Then we can also look at some examples in terms of the right arm, and this we'll see in terms of our prompt being enhanced by looking at certain patterns. We could have sample inputs that we'll note, as well as just essentially given a demonstration to AI. So you're giving a particular input. If we look at the output format, and that's going to be over here in terms of our left leg, we're going to look at the structure, the style, and the length. So do you want bullet points? Do you want a paragraph? Do you want a code block? Ask for it, and more specific again. And then we could also note what's happening in terms of constraints. So on the right leg, we're looking at what are the limitations, what are the bounds that we want to use, and the parameters to keep within a scope in terms of our output and work. So in that, this simplifies how we're going to design a prompt. You could use this as a guide, reinforces ideas that are effective with respect to prompts and aren't just questions. They're strategic inputs, and that's how we'll proceed. So next slide, please. Okay, some of the prompt types, you want to know this tool set that you have developed. And these prompt types are like different lenses. What do you want the AI to do? And what's the appropriate type? So this prompt type will look at informational prompts. And as you could see and note here, we're going to request specific information or data. And then we could also note, so think of, well, how would we define oxidative stress as one question? They're precise and they're retrieval focused. We can also look at creative prompts. What might be a way to get brainstorming or generate some type of art? If we have, if we're looking at this in terms of creating different types of images, what might happen in terms of an instructional prompt? So now here's, again, you're seeing the step-by-step directions, the instructions. What are you going to guide your work? It's great for creating tutorials. If you have conversational prompts, we want to engage in dialogue. So step-by-step instructions to create, let's say, a pivot table in Excel in terms of the data that I have. And we can also look at analytical prompts. So we want to see insight regarding the pros and cons of what might be a universal approach to healthcare or summarize themes in an article. All of these points come into play in terms of key components as well as the different prompt types. So you could essentially create that lens that you want to see the output from your generative AI tool. Next slide, please. As we consider moving into prompting and generating prompts, what you can do here is to then go and look at asking AI to get some help with a prompt. Now, if you could click on this link, I used Perplexity in this example, and so we might end up going here. And if you'll just scroll down a little, so you're seeing the generation of the prompts, and we could go here in terms of some key principle in terms of prompt engineering, and that's let's use AI to help us. And we could see that what is happening here, we have a few different types of key approaches, and the key approaches include the meta prompting, the iteration refinement, if you could move down a little. We'll also see what's happening in terms of scenario generation and chain of thought prompting. These are all pieces in terms of prompt engineering that provide some different input. We have just a brief amount of time today, so what you'll be able to obtain is a handout in terms of Darren will be posting that in the chat at some point, and with it we'll be able to go to this site and take a look at some of this information in more detail, because there is an incredible amount of great information, and including as you move down in terms of the tools and platforms. And if you could just go there, now you'll see that in this section, there are some different tools, platforms, and links, what they're best for. And so you could go to Prompt Layer, looking at Prompt Perfect, Prompt Parabellum.
Sorry.
Okay, so
Sorry. I was
it's
trying to get
okay.
rid of that.
Perfectly fine. We could go back to the slides. So you'll be able to really check on all of this information in terms of the prompt handout for this Perplexity one. The link is there, as well as all of those tables and points. So it's really a nice piece. If you could move to the next slide, also taking information in terms of temperature, which was raised in the Perplexity slide, and that noted, and when I was using Perplexity, and it really wasn't giving me a good piece in terms of how I'd like to talk about temperature. So we know we could, you look at this balancing component of creativity and predictability in our AI responses. And so to that end, I worked, and you'll see the little diagram here, which is in Claude. And so this is another package. So as part of the iteration, it was not only iteration within a package, a tool, but also across tools. And I find that to be helpful. So we could look at this balance between being very deterministic in our output, and then also the creativity. So if we could go to the next slide, please. If we look at a low temperature setting, so it is blue in terms of a cool setting, and we're asking the same question, explain primary colors. We'll see that the output characteristics, creativity is low, predictability is high, your coherence is high, factual going to be high, and it's good for technical documentation, scripts, and then also your factual question and answers. So here the response is 3 primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. They form the basis of color theory and cannot be created by mixing other colors. Okay, let's see if we look at the next one, which is going to be a balance. So now we see a change, or creativity, moderation, coherence has changed, factuality, and it's better for general content, conversational responses. So we're looking at this midpoint, 0.5, on a scale 0 to 1. So primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, are the foundation of color theory. Artists have long used to create vibrant palettes, and they capture the world's visual diversity. Okay, we can see how that applies, and you're seeing in each of these slides the key benefits in terms of the temperature control. What does it give you? And we could see those benefits there in terms of balance, consistency, output, diversity, and task alignment. So let's look at the last slide, maximizing creativity. And here we see the temperature setting 0.9, and we're having high creativity, low unpredictability. So we could get different responses each time. And if we ran this another time, we'd see primary colors dance together in endless combinations, painting our universe and infinite creative possibilities. Okay, this is going. So you're seeing how creative can move. But I wanted to provide you with some of those pieces. And let's go to the next slide, please, because I wanted to show you an example. In this, I used ChatGPT, and you could note here in terms of my input was generate a prompt to generate coding using R for creating a donut plot of healthcare admission rates for regional hospitals. And so then you're noting below here is what the prompt that GPT generated. And then I also asked for a donut plot, and this is the donut plot in terms of the regional information. So you could use that in terms of different ways. Now, let you know, I tried this with some of the same code, the same prompt with Perplexity, with Claude, also with Microsoft Copilot. And I got varying responses. Some gave me pie charts, and I didn't want a pie chart. I wanted a donut chart. So it's looking at those to see, well, how consistent are we in terms of the responses? Next slide, please. So with this, there is also part of the work that we'll be doing a little later, and that's how to generate effective prompts. And we'll look at understanding the prompts. So this interactive activity that we'll be involved in, keeping it clear and specific, providing guidance and examples, iterate, and you're seeing too, iterate and experiment, and then remember what's happening in terms of ethics. It's also a responsibility to check and document, check our work, check it, check what the output is, make sure that it's accurate so that you're not relying on some falsities that may be noted and hallucinations that definitely occur in terms of any of the generative AI tools. Next slide, please. So one area in terms of some of the fundamental prompt engineering techniques is that of few-shot learning, role instructions, chain of thought, template filling, and zero-shot prompting. So these are some of the basics you want to be familiar with. And we look at like few-shot learning is teaching by example, role instructions, responding with what's happening in terms of clinical expertise. You're seeing chain of thought might be helpful in terms of decision support, standardization, and then also efficiency. So we'll provide some different examples in our presentation today, and then you'll also see what happens in terms of some of the handouts and as you're generating and working with these types of prompts. Next slide, please. So these more advanced prompts, once you have feel somewhat accomplished with the preliminary prompts, now moving into the advanced prompts, so looking at more complex scenarios. So we could look at persona-based, adopting, let's say, clinical frameworks. So we're looking at evidence-based practice. What happens in terms of constraint-based? Where we have areas in terms of realistic planning, that may occur as to limitations that patients and providers working in healthcare may face. And so we want to be able to implement these. What happens in terms of decomposition? So we're going to break down the cases, break down the scenario into its component parts. It's more like a part practice, part to whole practice. If you look at a format specification, now you want to be able to meet what are the standards in terms of documentation. So that might be important. And you would prompt in a specific way to obtain that. And then lastly, your contextual prompting. And so now you're going to personalize this in terms of what may happen with respect to, let's say, patient-centered care, or how you're going to respond to the individual needs of a person. So in that, if we go to the next slide, please.
Oh.
Okay, and Fran?
My turn. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about applications of how you would apply this knowledge now that you have. Of course, as we mentioned, it's an iterative learning curve, and that's why we're providing you with these extensive resources at the end of the session. We're just sort of scratching the surface or the tip of the iceberg. But for teaching and instructional design, which of course is something that all of us have a responsibility for, it can help you with creatively creating discussion prompts for your students, generating assessment questions, developing lessons plans, designing case scenarios and simulations, and prompting student reflection, as well as course or module design. I'll be talking a little bit about those, and there's some resources on the handouts as well. What I particularly like about it, having a tool like this, is that it helps, you get started and provides you with some structural elements that, of course, you're going to be refining, since you are the human and you are the subject matter expert. It also allows you to generate personalized learning content, so you can incorporate diverse learning styles that help your students be more successful, so you can get ideas and help improve what you're offering your students. I have an example here where I used engineering, prompt engineering. Here we go. And I need to move everybody here. Okay, so here's the scenario that I used. This is my initial prompt that's in the blue here that I wanted to get help to refine so I can work with AI to generate this. I wanted to have learning content that explains the concept about confirmation bias. And here is the output that I received from Copilot, making it, more clear, more succinct, organized, clearly explaining what was being asked for. And then, of course, it's very helpful offering to do more, and I ask it to generate the content. Provided real-life examples for both healthcare and academic setting, and incorporated some ideas for an interactive knowledge check. Then the quiz is at the end with the correct answer. Engagement suggestions. And then you could, it offers to create SCORM packages to pull into Blackboard. But you can also go back and forth and ask for more and ask to expand on the content that you received. Applications for academic and creative writing certainly is to overcome writer's block. How do you get started? How to structure something, creating characters and things like that. Oh dear, my link is not there. So I will need to go back. I had added a link, but apparently we're not working on the same document here. All right. So here is the link that I had on my topic. So here, let me move this over. So this was my initial prompt to ask, can you help me? Because I want to develop a prompt template for my students. And here's the prompt template that was created for my students. Of course, the topic can be changed. So it's much more detailed. And then you can expand your conversation with AI to further customize this. Oh, The second higher ed example is for Trish.
Okay, thanks,
Or
Fran.
third, rather.
Okay, so in this, we're looking at research support and created a couple of examples. One with continuous type data, so from a spreadsheet or CSV data in terms of mental health using wearables. And there was a case of like 10,000 cases. I got this from Kaggle. The data sets that I obtained this from, the references are in the resources handout. So this is one in terms of typical spreadsheet type of work. And then another in terms of spreadsheet. However, this is text data. So looking at large language models. So these are the two examples in terms of data extraction. And then also you're seeing some of the what's happening in terms of a prompt that I use. So for the attached, this second one, the MedQuad data set, create a word cloud on the Q-type categories. And so Q-type was one of the variables. And so then you're seeing this one is in Claude, the other's in ChatGPT, and we're looking at the data analytics. And I'm not sure what happened there in terms of the got spread. We'll check that in terms of the slides. So these are the two prompts that I use in terms of data analytics. So if we could go to the next slide, please. And what I created in terms of the mental health data set is a correlation heat map. And in that, we're seeing, well, what's happening in terms of the correlations between the variables, mental health, what's happening in the mood rating, physical activity, in terms of steps, what happens to sleep duration an hour, and the heart rate. And then you're seeing, well, how we could interpret this for the correlations for a perfect positive correlation down through a perfect negative correlation. So the lighter ones are less and the darker are higher. And so you could see that it's a nice way to display what's happening in terms of our output. Let's go to the next slide, please. So that's in terms of the mental health. If we looked at the word cloud output, I had requested a frequency table and then also the word cloud for the number of terms that are used. And so that might be a first step that you might use in terms of natural language processing. And it's a good idea to see what's happening in terms of the frequency of the responses. And again, this was a fairly large data set. So it had, I believe, several, at least 15,000 cases, and you'll see that in terms of the references. The other data set, I reduced it to 200, just to give an example in that case. If we could go to the next slide, please. Then showed an example in terms of this, what happened in terms of the treatment count and then the prevention count with the different types of chronic diseases that were in this second data set, this MedQuad. And we're seeing a bar plot and also a table to illustrate what's happening in terms of the work. And so it asked for that in terms of the output. So you're seeing different ways to present the data. And this was after looking at it the first time and then making a change. So it was that iterative process that was used. Next slide, please. And it goes back to Fran.
Okay, so it's important to also consider the ethical considerations when working with AI, and we, have to address that because that's, very important. Certainly from academic integrity perspective, there needs to be transparency, and failure to disclose it, or misrepresentation of the use of AI is, could be considered plagiarism, but it also undermines the authenticity of the work because again, we don't, if we are not talking about how we have worked with it and edited the results we've obtained from AI, that you know, we know that it hallucinates and it fabricates and it pulls data erroneously. It has to have the human that's looking at it, and there has to be an element of transparency. And this, of course, does help model the proper behavior and ethical use of AI with our students. In addition, there needs to be, there's a consideration or the aspect of fairness when evaluation. If it's, you know, if you're comparing student performance, whether a student utilized AI to complete an assignment without disclosing it versus a student who did not, you know, so there's that imbalance between the two students as far as evaluating their performance. There's also the concerns about bias and accuracy. Bias, of course, in outputs can amplify what's societal biases. You know, so we need to be very cognizant and mitigate these considerations. One thing I wanted to point out is that I did not incorporate anything about privacy or bias or anything related to you know, that in my prompts to AI. So that we had talked earlier about how it's an iterative process when you start incorporating those things as you're thinking about it. Let's say I had utilized this for a particular assignment without incorporating that as my in my initial prompt when I was working with AI to generate a prompt. So maybe the next time I teach the course, because of the assignments that I got and what the interaction, the gaps that I noted, that I may edit and incorporate that into my prompt. Finally, there's this prompt over reliance, you know, to become over reliant of the tool. I mean, I love it, and I know Trish uses it extensively, but it is just that, a tool. It's a tool to help us think deeper, help us expand, be more creative, consider other perspectives. So it's that, if utilized prudently, it is a wonderful tool to have. So we have to balance that concern that we have on related to that. Oh, and I want to add one more thing. I'm sorry, Trish, let me go back. I wanted to say, if you want to get more involved in an ethical discussion, please join us for the Tuesday topic session that Darren mentioned. That's in 2 weeks on May 27th from 4 to 5 p.m. Trish, over to you.
Great. All right. Thanks, Fran. And yes, please make the time to go to this ethical AI. It's so critical. In fact, there's so many different resources that are out there, which I'm sure Connie will be identifying in terms of ethical AI, and how better to have an ethicist talk about ethical AI. So with that point being made, as we look at some of the best practices, we're going to look at this as in terms of 4 foundational practices for crafting effective prompts in our AI systems. And let's take a look at each one briefly. So the first, testing. So test extensively. Look at a variety of scenarios in terms of your prompts. Think about what might be on some of the edge cases, and that allows you to better, essentially, train the group that the AI tool that you're using. Your goal is to ensure that your prompt is going to be robust and it's going to perform reliably across a range of situations. So test extensively. The next, again, monitoring ethics. So we want to always be aware of, can someone be harmed by this? And we should look for biases, look for stereotypes, potential harmful outputs. Extremely critical. So look for fairness, inclusivity, and then also safety. Document everything. So keep records of your prompt versions and your expected outputs. And this includes what wording, what changes you made over time. It's great. We're in this big data age. Well, we're also, in terms of prompt engineering, there are a plethora in terms of prompts, types that can be used. So set up some format that you can keep track of them. Okay, so documentation is essential. Debugging, improving, and collaborating with others. always works in terms of helping to improve what we're doing and improve the use in terms of technology, of which our generative AI is one. And then last, but certainly not least, our clear language. It's essential. Ambiguous phrases, really, or terms that could be misinterpreted in some way, really place you in a situation of not being able to follow some of the other best practices. So we could have, with clear language and all of these best practices of monitoring ethics, documenting everything, and testing extensively, we'll be able to create more reliable, ethical, and effective prompts. And you'll see in terms of the handout on resources, there's one with the master prompt. And you could have some interactions with AI to really fine tune your output and work. Okay. Next slide, please. Fran?
Okay, so now we're going to spend some time, and we have the time. That's good because I was speeding up a little bit. So I wanted to make sure you had some time. So I know that people in the audience have used various chat large language models. So I'd like to really just quickly ask folks to type in the chat what they have utilized. ChatGPT.
T.
Anybody else? Copilot, ChatGPT, Google, Gemini, and DeepSeek. Thanks, Meg.
Mm-hmm.
Copilot.
Mm-hmm.
So predominantly the usual suspects, what I would call the usual suspects. One of the things that, number one, I would encourage you, perhaps not today, to stretch and use other tools, because there are so many tools out there, kick the tires, play around with them, to get to know what each functionality of each is, and just become more adept. So what we're going to be doing right now, and I see that Darren did you do the handout, Darren, in the chat?
Yes, I dropped it into the chat, and I just put in the AI prompt engineering handout scenarios.
Okay, very good. All right, so what I'd like everybody to do, we're just going to use maybe 8 minutes on this. So I'm going to start the timer right now. It's 43. So we're going to have 8 minutes. We have a variety of topics that are in there related to health, academia, research, that you can select from. And what I would like you to do is select, I think probably today, your tool of preference. And use that to work with it, to collaborate with AI, to generate a prompt for that challenge that we've offered you in the handout. So we'll start the timer right now. Just do it on your own there. It is 43, and I will let you know when 8 minutes are up. Okay. So now I'd like to just ask anybody if they want to talk about the results they got when they were collaborating with AI on that particular challenge. Stephen, you unmute? Can you unmute, please?
Can't hear you, Stephen.
Yeah, you need to unmute.
You're muted.
Okay,
There you go.
unmuted. Now I got it. All right, let me go back to, I had a comment that came from chat. So I asked for give me a list of references, APA style, of scoping reviews that are done for leadership styles in healthcare since 2010 and published in peer-reviewed journals. So they all sound good, but it made this comment that I don't understand. It said, please note that these references were created for illustrative purposes based on common structures in the literature and may not correspond to actual publications. Be sure to verify your sources and find actual studies that match your research needs. And if I can add to that, now I'm a bottom feeder with AI, in full disclosure, but working with some other faculty, we've been finding references that AI's given us that look great. We even recognize the journal and we cannot find them.
Classic hallucination. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
part of the reason of going back and checking. I mean, they're putting in a disclaimer. Yes, it may be some type of falsity in some way, shape, or form. But if you don't go back and check, and you just take whatever the output is, that is an egregious error, in terms of some of the reliance on generative AI. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that several times. It's like, really?
Right.
Yeah, 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 they look
Yeah.
good. And
They
then
look good. That's what's
yeah,
frustrating, right? I said, oh, this is a great article. We got to look at this. And like, wait, we can't find it.
yeah,
All
yeah,
the more reason, then you could write it, and then it'll,
yeah, exactly. Anybody else? Diane, I thought you would
Yep.
speak up. Very
I'll
good.
share mine. Yeah, I had to switch things. So I asked the one about developing an optimal discussion question. And I gave it one of the learning goals from the course that I teach on communication and self-awareness for leadership. And it was this learning goal was examine communication skills relevant to leadership roles. And it gave me a really nice prompt, but it said considering various leadership styles, and it listed some common challenges, it listed them, communication skills, it listed them, it like what are the barriers and things. And I'm going, why want the students to identify these things? So I had to redo it. And then I decided, okay, well, why did you include leadership styles in this question? So, and it came back, he goes, to give it more context. And it actually, I used Gemini, by the way, and it came back, well, contextual relevance, avoiding generalizations, real world application. So it really kind of justified why it decided to put learning styles in, which when that wasn't even part of the question or the learning goal. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Sometimes it gives you more than you want because you weren't as confining and contextual in your prompt. Can you read your prompt again?
Sure. The prompt was provide an optimal discussion question for graduate students to help them meet this learning goal. Examine communication skills relevant to leadership roles. So yeah, I mean, it is the broad goal. It's a course goal and not like a module goal. So maybe if I went down into a module goal, it would have been a little more definitive. But it also makes me think, because I don't have leadership styles in the course, maybe I should add that to the course. Oh, I just realized my thing was covered. Sorry, that I should add that to the course. So it was helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Again, you might get an output that makes you think. But you certainly have to review the output as both you and Stephen showcased in your response. Stephen, what model did you use?
I have AI, what's it, Chat AI Pro.
Chat AI Pro, okay.
Is
Anybody
that
else?
the same as Chat GPT, or is it different?
it's ChatGPT, but it is
Older version?
which version?
Well,
no, so did you use the 4.0, the 4.5, the
oh, I think it's the 4.0, Trish.
Okay.
And I know I think it's $20 a month.
Yeah, so you could have a variety of other responses that you could generate. So if you use like the 4.0, that's the general one, and then the update, then you'll see one that's more for coding. So there's mini 4.0, there's mini 4.5. There's 4.5 is kind of in the area possibly in terms of research that's being used. So just do the drop down and you'll see that there are different options that are available in terms of the Chat GPT that you might be using.
Okay, good. So let's wrap up with final Q&A. Any questions that folks might have? We have a few minutes left. So I want to use that to benefit. Any questions, comments? Next steps?
I could just point out one thing that they need to look for, and this is if you look on the slide in terms of the text, you could find that there are different times when there are spelling errors, and it drives me. Oh, it's like, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so we had prompt and then optimize, double Z. So checking all of those pieces are important. Again, another instance in terms of checking your the output that you see generated and ensuring that and wow, I just saw it now, automatically. So create some new terms too, I guess.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, so yeah, again, it's all about us really scrutinizing the result that we get. It like any tool, you want to be able to evaluate what the product is from it. We hope you found this session helpful. If there are no many other questions, we are going to share the slides. Actually, what we're going to do is add my link to my slide that was missing, and then that will be shared along with the handouts have already been distributed. And I know, Darren, the recording will be posted shortly, right?
Yeah, it usually takes a couple of days for us to edit the recording and get it up to the YouTube site. There's a link if you go to the Tuesday Topics page. I'm just going to pop it into the chat. At the very bottom of the page is a link to the Tuesday Topics playlist on YouTube. So you can, the recording will end up there. But I'll send an email to everybody who is here to share, make sure you have all the resources.
All right, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We've really enjoyed having you here and scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tricia
Thanks, everyone.
and Fran, quick question. Is there a committee that we can send observations to? Not looking to people who would do a tutorial for us, but if we spot something, is anybody collecting sort of comments, questions?
That would be the CNAP task force. Do we have kind of a bucket we can be collecting that in, Darren?
You could send it to me and I can make sure it gets shared with the committee. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Paulina Sokolow's in charge of the task force. So
okay. She's in our department, so or the new one now. Yeah, just because I got this weird comment one time that the AI said to me, basically, I have not been updated since 2018. Can't help you. I'm like, oh my gosh.
So it's
I'm
time
like,
to
isn't that the whole point of AI?
Taking a break.
Right. Yeah. But all the more reason to try different tools. Like Trish was giving the example, she had taken the same prompt and shopped it around, really, essentially with other AI tools, and so you can, for some tasks, you might find ChatGPT works for you. Other tasks, Claude will work. I'm still exploring and finding things that I can use. So shop it around. But it is wise to ask the tool when it's been updated.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, we used Copilot to draft the initial event description for this event.
Yeah.
So, and then we refined it.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And Stephen, and anyone here, I'd really take a strong look at the resources. Fran and I think compiled a nice display in terms of how you can find some of these things being useful. There are also some YouTube videos. There's something that I just found. It's been out maybe a month. It is the Elon University AI for Student Resources 2025 and 2024. And so there's a description there. And these are just amazing pieces. There's something in terms of a master prompt. If you input that information and then you're interacting with whatever generative AI tool, it'll help in terms of generating your prompt. So those are things to just try out. And, as you've found out and you're not believing everything that you see or read, it's also checking it out in other ways and researching the output.
And this also here, I think this discussion here about the hallucinations or inaccuracy really is a broader issue. It's not just related to AI, even though AI is generating a lot of information that's being disseminated today. But we do have to develop a critical eye, and we have to develop a critical eye among our learners as well, and really build that into it becoming second nature in how we look at the content that's presented to us, whether it's output from an AI tool or it's media.
Mhm.
Good.
So-
Thanks.
so
This is very
Thank
helpful.
you. Yeah, thank you again, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a great
everyone.
day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, man. Bye now.